Welcome back, everyone. Lisa Matthews, Kyle Odegard here, talking all about the D-line heading into free agency. Now, the need is very high. They need depth at this position. You have Corey Peters holding it down, coming back at the nose tackle, and then beyond that, it kind of gets a little murky. Yeah,
certainly he's been the constant presence on the defensive line. Very good player, a little bit under the radar, but he'll be back. Robert Kimdichie is a guy who you would love to be a starter, but he's had inconsistency, and then he tore his ACL. So you don't know at one point he's going to be ready in the season. And we've seen guys coming off of ACLs, they don't perform to their previous standard because it takes a little bit to get back. So those two guys you have on the roster, but Kimdichie is a question mark. And then Rodney Gunter, who played really well last year as a free agent, and so is Olsen Pierre. So like you said, I think depth is important. Maybe not get a splash guy. I think it's possible because they have cap room, and maybe there's a legitimate defensive lineman you want, but at least getting the numbers up.
Yeah, they have money to spend, so this is definitely an area that they will be putting towards. You mentioned Rodney Gunter. He put together a pretty solid season, so what's the market out there for him? We don't know. And then Olsen Pierre, he did do a lot better in the 3-4, so that could mean he could be returning.
Yeah, I think Olsen Pierre certainly had some big sack numbers 2 years ago, didn't have a big impact last year. Rodney Gunter, I think he's going to have a nice market. He had a career year at the right time. He's a good age, so question marks about if Rodney Gunter will be back, if they can afford him. And right now, you also look at the run defense where it took a step back last year. Maybe you look for guys who aren't necessarily superstars, but can strengthen the defensive line against the run because they've had those guys in the past, a Frosty Rucker and a Josh Morrow, underrated a little bit and under the radar, but guys that are essential to stop the run.
All right, March 13th, it all begins. Be sure to stay right here for all your free agency news. Welcome back to Free Agent Primers. Lisa Matthews, Kyle Odegard here with you, talking all about the linebacker position and two guys that are back in the linebacker corps, Chandler Jones, Marcus Golden. Of course, looking from the outside in, Chandler Jones holds it down on one side, but his buddy Marcus Golden is set to hit the free market. So what is the likelihood of them continuing on here in the Valley together?
Yeah, that's a legitimate question. Marcus Golden obviously had a huge season his second year, 12.5 sacks, had the torn ACL a couple years ago, was trying to get back last year, didn't put up huge numbers. So it's a very interesting question about what kind of market he's going to have, if he's going to test free agency and find a lucrative deal because pass rushers do get paid, or if he wants to do maybe more of a shorter term deal, whether that's here or elsewhere. He does want to be back. He's talked multiple times about wanting to stay with the Cardinals, but you have to figure out if the money makes sense and if there's a spot for him. Right now there certainly is, because like you said, Chandler Jones is on one side, question mark on the other.
And he's definitely a guy that you know that the front office loves, just the way that he plays, fans love him, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here. Now looking on the inside, Dan Buchanan, who was such a staple for this defense, talking about a couple years ago under the Arians era, never really found a role under the Wilkes 4-3, but reverting back, could this mean he finds a role again in this defense?
Yeah, I think the likelihood of him coming back is certainly increasing because, like you said, under Steve Wilkes' defense, he wasn't playing very much. He wasn't too happy with not playing, and it seemed like he'd be gone. It was a foregone conclusion, but coming back to what he did, like you said, with Bruce Arians, he found success, and now does he have a role with this new team? It's once again figuring out the market. Does another team, Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles are in Tampa Bay, James Bettcher is in New York, his other former defensive coordinator. So he has experience with other teams. It depends if the Cardinals want him back and if it's the right price, but certainly the likelihood is higher than maybe when they had the former staff in place.
And the Cardinals added Brooks Reed to the bunch. So this is a high priority in free agency, but first comes free agency, then comes the draft. So there's a lot of question marks in the mix of things, but stay tuned here, March 13th, it all begins.